Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here again today. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background about myself. So I myself have a PhD from Germany in psychology with focus on ADHD. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I've also been practicing in Canada on this topic and currently work in the area of HR, focusing on adults and improving their daily life and work performance, regardless of their status. I myself have ADHD and I know how it is. So, as a medical professional, as a psychologist, as an HR professional, as an educator, as well as a person who has ADHD. It's lovely to be with you here today. I have tried to create a presentation that would be very practical for everybody, and it's not just for educators. I'm also, because it's sometimes a mixed group of people attending, I've also created a couple of slides for people who might be working as managers or people who are working in human resources. I would be more than happy to answer any of your questions at the end of the presentation, and feel free to reach out to me at any point in time should you need any support or anything like that in this particular area. ADHD is also, so to say, my passion and something I'm very interested about. So what we will cover today is basically we will be talking about understanding ADHD and what are some things that you could do in the classroom or work environment to be able to support individuals with ADHD. How does it present? What does that look like? And I just wanted to say that, first of all, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what ADHD is. Then we will look at what we could do. And I just wanted to also say that ADHD is not a character flaw. So very often children and adults with ADHD are labeled as disorganized or lazy or not listening or not paying attention. So this is not the case. It's not about being lazy or not caring. It's just a different way in terms of how brain regulates and processes information, and that individuals, children, and adults with ADHD do not do these things on purpose. And when we understand this, we can try harder and start asking, how can we design the task, the classroom, or the job so this person can succeed? So our goal today is to understand, to have a better understanding of ADHD and to design better the environments for learning and working, because as you can see, despite the fact that I have ADHD and I also have some other colleagues who are very successful in their work, I was still able to do my PhD. I'm still able to work at managerial position in a large corporation in Germany. So what I'm trying to say is that you can be successful despite the fact that you have ADHD. So here's some basics about ADHD. It's very important to understand that's a neurodevelopmental condition. So what does that mean? It really means that it has to do with the way the brain is working and is processing information. And it really relates to how brain grows and works over time. ADHD, some experts say, is inherited, that if one of the parents has ADHD, there are like a lot of other conditions. It could be passed on to the child. It's also, it starts in childhood. We don't not necessarily know why, but there's some chemical disbalances in the brain, but it stays with you throughout your whole life. So with children, it's more obvious because they do not have the techniques and the strategies, so to say, to manage and regulate their behavior. But with adults, it still persists as an issue. So what does it impact? It really impacts, first word of the condition is attention, what you can focus on and for how long. So if a person with ADHD is interested in the task, they can be super efficient, they have a lot of imagination and do the task very quickly. If it's something that is boring and not interesting, this would also impact their ability to focus for a longer period of time. I also want to mention that ADHD does not present in everybody the same way. So, for example, I will take my personal case. I am able to focus on multiple things at the same time, and it's almost like I need to multitask to be able to focus. Like I need to listen to music or a fidget, like move around a little bit and do one thing, then another to just be able to focus. While some other people who have ADHD, they need to just focus on one thing. So they cannot talk or listen to somebody talking while working on a task. So it really depends. But what I wanted to say is that if a child is in the classroom and they're fidgeting, moving, drawing, and they're listening, they're trying to focus. So it's not necessarily that just because they're not looking at you in the eyes and nodding their head that they're not listening. In fact, they need to do this drawing or writing or doing something else to be able to focus. It is scientifically proven that verbal instructions, so whatever we share verbally, is the hardest for people with ADHD to focus on. And we know that in classroom, there's so much information shared verbally. So it is better for children, I'll talk about this a little bit later, it is better to share information for children and adults in a written way so they can refer back to it as opposed to just sharing it verbally. When people with ADHD hear verbal instructions, sometimes their brain gets overwhelmed and aren't able to focus. There is also issues with impulse control. So it's hard to stop and think before acting or speaking. So you can see some behaviors in children and adults who have ADHD that they are excited about the topic, they're interrupting you, they're not patient, so to say, to wait for you to finish. This is something that I also have, so to say. Activity level and energy. Sometimes this activity level may impact restlessness. So children are restless, cannot sit for 45 minutes or an extended period of time. Or like they need to move their arms or their legs, or restless leg syndrome is also something that could be present in people with ADHD. So something that I recommend for children, if this is possible to implement in school and in your classroom, is to just allow this child to maybe get up for a minute, jump up and down, or do something physical or something to get that energy out of their body, basically, because they're not able to focus with the amount of energy that is kind of packed up in their body, because there is a disbalance between the brain and the body. On one side, the brain is trying to focus and there's so much energy on that, and then on the other side, the body is not moving, so it's kind of like tension that builds up. Sometimes we recommend that the children wear some like a weighted vest, something a little bit more heavy for the pressure, to help them calm down, or to chew a gum or a gummy or something like that, or have like a fidget toy. For example, what I do is I play with my jewelry a little bit, like a necklace or a ring. So this is something that also adults do. Sometimes, though, people with ADHD, because of these bursts of the energy, they feel overwhelmed by tasks, so they don't want to move or want to do anything, feel a little bit on the depressive side. So that all has to do with, I'm not going to go into the neurological part of that and explain the chemistry, but it has to do with the dopamine levels in your body, in your brain in particularly. Starting and finishing tasks is also something that people with ADHD have issues with. So let's say that they know that they need to do something, but without a very concrete deadline, this is hard for them to achieve. Difficulty either starting or keep going, or a lot of times what I see in people with ADHD is that they get excited about some kind of wow, that's an interesting thing. Let's start a new project and let's start something new. And then they have that energy at the beginning, but then it tapers off. So this energy and interest and motivation is not there anymore. So it's hard for them to keep going. And without a deadline, I would also say that it's very hard. People with ADHD do have, children and adults included, have difficulty performing well if they need to give themselves a deadline. So if my manager gives me a deadline and I know that I have 2 days to finish something, I will probably do it the day before that. So this time management is also a big issue with children and adults with ADHD. So why should this matter? Why is this definition so important? Because without the understanding of what it is to have ADHD, it is hard to create the right environment. And the person brain has this difficulty regulating attention, time, and actions. So we need to change the environment. So there's some things that we could do with the child or adult that has ADHD. There are techniques, for example, but there's some things that at school teachers could do, or at work managers or human resource people. So this is also about the understanding of what it is, what does that look like, and understanding that there are some things that we could do to improve the life and school and work performance for individuals with ADHD. So as I just shared, ADHD is a regulation problem. So it's in the brain. It's not something that we can necessarily control. For example, what helps me, and I will be very personal here, is obviously all good life habits. So sleeping on time, having regular sleep, eating healthy. Also, there's some supplements that I have found are helpful, but overall a healthy lifestyle for adults and children. But there are certain things that you cannot control, even with that, even with a healthy lifestyle, exercise and supplements. You do sometimes have still these issues with ADHD where you have willpower problems or challenges. This means that if you don't like a certain task, it will be very hard for you to do it. So you kind of have to push yourself or have other people push you to do it. Also, why is ADHD so important, and something I like to talk about, and something that at work I'm very focused on. Like, we have a lot of strategies at work. We're a large company with 70,000 employees, and we have strategies to support individuals who have ADHD. Is because ADHD is very common. So about 1 in 20 children have it, and by some statistics, 1 in 40 adults have it. Although I would say that is more than that. It's just that as you grow up, you learn some strategies to manage maybe your ADHD better, but you still have it. And it is also important to understand that different environments, there's so many studies on this in education and psychology and other fields that have proven that a good environment, a supportive environment, can improve work and school performance in ADHD adults. So it is very likely that you have in your classrooms or at work children who have ADHD, that you also have colleagues, friends, family who have ADHD, and who do appreciate that you understand how they see their world. Because I can tell you that for me, once I've gotten aware of what it is for myself, and I've talked about it, and I'm talking about it, and I have the right environment, I'm also able to be more productive, happy, and overall, so to say, a normal human being. So how does ADHD appear in the classroom? This is not for you to diagnose children. This is not meant by that in any means. It's more just so you are aware of some behaviors that show ADHD. So these are some, for example, small mistakes, even when the student understands the topic. Homework or assignments are often missing, half finished, or handed in late. The student seems to tune out when you give them verbal instructions. Later, they would say, I didn't understand what to do. So a lot of issues with these verbal instructions. For example, students do well on tests, but cannot manage daily homework or long projects. They seem to be fidgeting, wanting to interrupt other children or interrupt other children. For example, while other children are speaking. It could also be some sensitivity to, say, light. It could be sensitivity to noise. When children with ADHD are overwhelmed in terms of information, in terms of the sensation in their environment, that means light, noise, all of those things, they could get, well, so to say, aggressive in terms of they could throw a tantrum because they cannot regulate the feelings that they have. And could be very tired after school and have emotional reactions. So these are temper tantrums. So a lot of times children with ADHD, especially, it shows differently in girls than in boys. Boys have more of this, more of movement needs than girls. It has to do with our biology. So usually children, especially boys with ADHD, are marked as problematic, emotional, throwing temper tantrums, or lazy. And what usually follows suit is punishment and repeated warnings. But it is important to understand that this is not something they can necessarily control. And there are ways and techniques, I will not go into that today, for them to learn how to manage this. There is one technique called How Does Your Engine Run? Very popular in Canada, where I did my master's on this topic, where children can learn when they're getting so like where they're getting so overwhelmed that they cannot control their emotional reactions. But there are also things we can do in the environment to change their environment to make it better for them. In the workplace, so already when children are adults or maybe even teenagers, you can see again missed deadlines, reports or tasks that are late, everything being done in the last moment. Usually people with ADHD are very creative. They're excellent when there is a crisis because they do have this hyper focus, but they are struggling with regular or routine tasks. They have an email with many unread messages, and this interruption of work is usually an issue. As I said, not everybody is the same, but in general, people with ADHD and children do need a certain focus time. So for some of them, it's early in the morning. That's better for some in the afternoon. I am, for example, a person that can focus the best in the evening. So a couple of hours of focus time goes a long way. And one of the things that I recommend for people with ADHD is that they do take this time to remove all the distractions in terms of put your MS Teams or whatever you're using on quiet or focus time or do not disturb so they can do quality work, because usually multitasking is an issue. They do not sometimes follow through because they don't have forgotten it, they didn't write it down. So organization is a big issue here. As I said, again, talking a lot, oversharing, restless behavior, so not being able to sit or stand for a long time. Even right now, while I'm presenting, I'm moving a little bit, I am playing with my fingers. They could be interrupting colleagues, jumping from one task to the other. So this is for children as well and teenagers, so not just in the workplace. Another thing which I wanted to point out too is similar with children who have autism, adults and children with ADHD do have a hard time looking at you in the eyes. So I personally have practiced this to look person in the eyes because this is a very big part of the Western European or American culture. And it could be seen as unprofessional that when you're talking, you're not looking the person in the eyes. Why is this that individuals with ADHD or autism, children and adults, have such a challenge with? It's because when we're talking, we are thinking in pictures. So we have different pictures, different imagery in our heads, and this is how we organize our information. Again, not everybody is the same, but this is something from the studies and my experience. And this is why it's hard for them and for me and to look the whole time person directly in the eyes. This is also why we have difficulty understanding verbal information, because if you're talking and we are having issues imagining this, so having a verbal image of what this looks like in our heads, it is very challenging for us to do a certain task. And this is something I have discovered personally myself with my manager. I do come from a different culture in comparison to the German culture. So my manager is very German, and I realized that when he's talking very abstractly and I cannot create an image in my head of what he would want me to do, it is very hard for me to do a certain task. So what we're doing together is that he's either giving me written instructions or we're sitting down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, brainstorming together, drawing something out so I can understand better what the expectations are. So as you see, it still persists. I'm 38 years old and I still am aware of the issues that I have regarding this. What I can just say is that understanding children with ADHD and the issues they face, you play such a huge role as educators in these children's lives, to be honest with you. And I have seen numerous times children with ADHD being marked as problematic, as lazy, as this and that. And they only need one person to believe in them, to support them. Sometimes the way they're, so to say, labeled at school is also at home. So parents also think this. So it's your role really to, first of all, understand yourself what it is, and to educate parents as well. Because what happens later on with adults who have been labeled as problematic at school is that they've kind of fallen off the rails. So once at school, and I see it now, I've seen it before, I've seen it with so many adults. Okay, he's lazy, he's disorganized, he's problematic. You kind of mark them as the black sheep in the family as well. And these children, these adults who have this hyper focus, who are good at many different areas in life, but they're not able to sit for an hour extended or a very long extended period of time, do not have the opportunity to ever participate in life in the same way they would if there had been the support and understanding of their needs and their condition. So it's very, very crucial to understand the role that you have and how much your word and your education, your approach to them makes it such a huge difference. Why I say this, I've looked at the educational system in Canada and in Germany. For example, in Canada, there is a lot of education for educators, for teachers, for at workplace regarding ADHD. And children there who have ADHD are not secluded. They're not punished in that same way. They're provided with therapy, with support, and they're able to thrive and then later on be productive members of society. What I have observed in some other cultures, like for example in Germany, where you have much more discipline and strict and certain expectations of children's behaviors and adults, is that you see that children who have not been getting this kind of support and are casted away, so to say, they're also more likely to engage in other risky behavior. So it's not just that they will drop out of school and will never be able to get a job that fits them or anything like that. It is that if everybody's telling you that you're a failure, that you're lazy, your teachers, your parents, you're more likely to also to hang out with other children who are similar. You would engage in risky behavior, such as taking alcohol, drugs, anything like that. And it would make the whole situation even worse, and just it perpetuates throughout your whole life. So I wanted to just underline that there is numerous research, scientific, but just from also my experience working with children with ADHD and with adults, you can definitely see that the support, especially during childhood from both school, so educators and parents, played a huge role later on in how these children turned out, as opposed to some environments where they were just cast away and punished for their behavior. So it's very important to understand that many behaviors, you see it both at school and work, is that people with ADHD, children and adults, can focus very well when task is interesting, new, challenging, or urgent. And it's then very important to understand that when you give a task that is boring and repetitive, they would have more issues or not clearly explained. and the struggle to start, and have time blindness. So time management is also an issue. And we'll talk about how we could support some of these things within the classroom. So what is it that you as educators can do? You cannot change someone's brain, but you can stop calling these things, stop maybe engaging in some punishing behavior. So punishment usually has not resulted from psychological point of view in any kind of benefit, so to say, for the child. You can change how you can work and how work and learning is structured. And so your role is also not to diagnose. Your role is to stop confusing regulation problems with bad character. It's not necessarily that children misbehave or fidgeting because they want to annoy the educator or the teacher. It is just that they're overwhelmed. So think about how you can change tasks and lessons and keep expectations clear and high while using smart supports. And I'll talk about this a little bit more. You can say to yourself, I cannot remove ADHD, but I can remove some of the unnecessary frictions in the way I teach. That will help this child show how what they can really do. And I'll talk about the principle of the 4S framework, which could be your practical toolkit. So first of all is to simplify, reduce the unnecessary complexity, make tasks and instructions clear and light. Scaffold means to build a structure around the task, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. So this includes steps, checklists, templates, and planned check-ins. And to signal, do not trust memory of children alone or adults. Use external reminders, timers, and visual tools so the brain does not have to remember everything itself. So how do you simplify a learning task? And I'm sure you are more than me an expert on this, but just for the sake of the presentation today, I just wanted to go over this. You need to ask yourself, would a student with ADHD clearly know what to do and how to start? So if I'm somebody who has issues with starting a task and I'm not very good at verbal instructions, that I would really appreciate a step-by-step instructions, for example. You can also show a model. What helps me and what I've also used with children with ADHD is to show a short sample of a paragraph or a solution, or let students see what good work looks like. Like recently, I've had to, for example, create a model for a huge program that we're rolling out at our company. And I asked my manager to kindly share a sample that he has worked on, but also how he got there. So if it's a very complicated task, I wanted to see how he got from status quo to his solution. Give 2 or 3 very clear criteria. So what should that look, apart from what should that look like, what is that you're expecting it to be? So what are the deliverables? And reduce choices. So instead of saying write about anything or having it very wide open, people with ADHD get overwhelmed with that. You can have them choose 1 or 2, 3 things, for example. Write short steps, open your notebook, write the date, answer question 1 only. So reduce that amount of anxiety that comes up from us wondering, because a lot of children and adults with ADHD, We're overwhelmed with the fact that it should be perfect. So whatever we come up with should be perfect, should be well done. So how do I ensure that it's well done? Maybe I overlook something. So we're reading into it. So that's why very clear written instructions have been proven in the long run as very, very positive. What is we talked a little bit about scaffolding. So scaffolding for educators, this means giving support around a task. It's not doing the task yourself. So you can start them off by doing the first step together. So say, let's all write a title and one sentence together. Once they start, many students with ADHD can continue themselves more easily. You can have checklists and organizers give a simple checklist before you hand it in. You can, did you have your name written on the paper? Are all questions answered? One example included, or things like that. Small checkpoints, halfway through work time, pause, and then you can say, by now you should be at question 3. If you're behind, put a star on the question where you are and move on to the next. What happens is that if you have ADHD and you don't know an answer, you will just rumigate and then get yourself kind of like all wrapped up into it, and you're not able to finish the whole task, the whole assignment. This is also something that could be done at work. So all of these things are very similar for work as well. Signal the time and visual cues. Use a visible timer. Show students how much time is left. I know when I was getting into college at the US, I did the SAT, and it was very helpful that they would tell us very often how much time we have left, because the assignments are very short. You can write now, next on the board. Now questions 1 to 3. Next, share with your partner. Because what happens is that children with ADHD are kind of impatient, so they're like, oh, I'm going to go on to the next task, or I don't know what the next task is, so I get bored and my motivation goes away. And show deadlines and mini deadlines. So you can say, today we're going to choose a topic, tomorrow we're going to write outline, on Friday we can hand in the final version. Things like that. You can also use timers, and there are many different ways to do this. Just remember to provide as much structure as needed, and as many steps, and just support, especially starting. Starting is the biggest issue, I would say. I just wanted to touch upon this topic as well. Discipline is here very important, but how you show it matters, especially with students with ADHD who already often feel bad about themselves. So correct in private when you can, not publicly, instead of in front of the whole class. Talk about behavior, not about the person themselves. So you did not hand in the assignment, not saying you're lazy, you're dumb, you're this, you're that. In therapy, we avoid, even when we do adult therapy, we don't use you're this, you're that. It's like your behavior, you identify the behavior, and you say what's wrong with the behavior. You can say link consequences to support. So you can say, you talk for 10 minutes during work time. Next time, I will move you closer to my desk and give you smaller chunks of work. So it is easier for you to stay on task. It is really important to understand that humiliating comments or jokes can be very hurtful and very damaging. As I say, cannot underline this enough, the role that you have as educators of children's lives, and the parents, especially in those formative years, are something that will impact their whole lives. As I said, if you don't get anything and you don't remember anything from this presentation, I just want you to get the importance of your approach your kindness and empathy in this situation, how much that impacts that child's life. And really avoiding these labels like lazy, stupid, hopeless. You can use, you can say you're smart and capable. Right now, the way you're working is not helping, but I can support you. We will change some things around, and I still expect you to do your part. So I'm not saying that you should not be disciplining or there shouldn't be any discipline for children with ADHD. It is just to show empathy and understanding for them and to support them in a very structured way. There are some helpful conversations that you could do where you see a child struggling, asking them about, is it that you're having difficulty with starting a task? Which part for you is the hardest? This can tell you where to change your teaching and where to change your approach. Let's make the steps smaller together. What would be a good first step? Or you suggest the first step. As I said, you do something with them together. What helps you remember things at home? Can we use something similar here or try different techniques? With parents, it's very important how you also lead conversations. You can talk to them and say, here is what I see at school. They're missing homework or very slow work, even when your child understands the topic. What have you noticed at home? And also educate them on the fact that their child has ADHD, that this is nothing out of the world, out of this world, is nothing, I don't know, so to say, horrible. It is just that their brain functions differently, where they're able to focus and they're able to perform more under pressure than other people without ADHD, but they can still be super successful. And I would even say that in some tasks and in some job roles, people with ADHD outperform people without ADHD. So, as I said, your role is very important. I wanted to also go through this very quickly. For managers, your power is how you define and communicate work. As I said, very important around deadlines, limit priorities, and using simple structure. Oh, it's always about simplifying work and clarifying expectations, I would say. Check-ins are very important. This is something that at work, I have check-ins with my manager twice a week, and for some smaller things even more often, just so you see if we're on the same page to keep things going. And I am very grateful that at my company, it's totally fine that you share that you have ADHD or you are struggling with something like that. I'm aware that it's not everywhere where the situation is like this, but we are doing a lot of education in this area. So sometimes 5 minutes or 10 minutes of meeting with your direct reports saves you from a lot of headaches. So again, there are a lot of ways to organize work so everybody's on track. You can use different software, reminders, things like that. As far as HR and what companies can do is really to include ADHD in diversity inclusion talks. So this is policies that touch on very different things when it comes to, for example, women getting promoted and having equal chances as men in the workplace, support flexible work and focus time. As I talked about this focus time, this is also for children important that given that you're having problem to focus, sometimes it is necessary to allot this focus time where children are sitting for, like even if it's 10 minutes, that they're focused on the task at hand. And what else I wanted to say? Yeah, helpful conversations for managers. What my manager does excellently is that we talk about all of these things very openly, and I can share with them where I feel the most supported, where I feel like I'm struggling. This is something that's for me very, very helpful. Where do I feel most stuck and overwhelmed? Where do I feel like I'm doing my best work? And you as educators, in terms of at work, at school, you can definitely talk to children and understand how they function, and do they need maybe more movement, or why did they. Sometimes they're not aware of that. They're not able to explain to you, oh, I'm fidgeting or I'm restless because I need movement. But you can try a strategy with them and see how that works out for you. When there is a performance problem at school with the child, you can talk to the child and talk to them in a very open way about what the situation is, and to ask them why are they underperforming, what is going on, and in a very caring and empathetic way. What got in the way of you learning about something? Is it that you don't understand? Is it whatever? Then you can change one thing, just one strategy for them, from simplifying scaffolding or signaling, say that you give them verbal instruction or written instruction instead of verbal, that you send them reminders, that you check in with them. Let's say if you give them 2 weeks to complete a task, you check in with them like after a couple of days or 1 week, just so they get, like, after some time, they will get it themselves. They will implement these strategies themselves. Just that sometimes, especially in this formative years, children do need support from you. Yeah. And when to suggest professional help, if this is relevant for you. I'm not, as I said, anything from today, it's not about you going into the classroom diagnosing children, things like that. But if you do see some behavior, and if there is such option for you, if you see difficulties are strong in many areas of life, supports did not help enough, there is high stress, anxiety, or low mood, safety or serious function is affected, I do always say that therapy is the best really way to hash some of those things out and talk through, and the best support children and adults can get. I just wanted to share that with you as an option. That there's a lot of things that we do with children who have ADHD. There are different strategies they can learn. And all therapy that I have done in Canada with children, I always did a lot of education with educators, with teachers and parents, because just working with children was not sufficient. The environment, as I said, very crucial role you play, and the parents play in children's lives. So there are many different resources for you. I will share this presentation, and you are always welcome to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to support you. I have done some of this work also in Nigeria, so I'm aware of the issues in developing countries as well as developed. And this is my passion, something I'm really, really, passionate about, as I said. Just a couple of things to keep in mind: that no, children are not making excuses. It's just the way they are. They can learn strategies, but you cannot change completely the way their brain works. There's some questions about ADHD being overdiagnosed. It's not necessarily about ADHD being overdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. The strategies that we use for children with ADHD can be applied to all kinds of children, to everybody really. Everybody appreciates clear task and teaching and workplace, that is, for children. And as I said, ADHD is just the way brain works. It has nothing to do with them having a bad character or misbehaving. Yeah. So it's up to us at the workplace or as teachers to support them in their learning and growth and development. And that's it. You can reach me via my work email. You can just type in my name via LinkedIn or via my private email. And I will be more than happy to give you more strategies, more whatever you might need, guidelines, resources, ideas, completely for free. Thank you so much. And yeah, I've talked a lot. I hope that this was not overwhelming. And I'm looking forward to your questions if there are any. And yeah, that would be for me today.
Thank you for the studious each of the topic practice that is for the classrooms and workplaces. Your practical approach for the classrooms and workplaces will definitely help to the teachers to adopt your formula. Now,
Yeah.
I would like to request all the participants they can unmute and can discuss with our today's speaker.
Yeah, and as I said, if there are no questions at the moment, please feel to reach out. Yeah.
Good evening, Dr. BETKAR, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Wonderful presentation. And ADHD, is really one of the very important challenge, what we should say. And especially, the parents takes time to understand this ADHD condition. And when I'm from a medical profession, and when we talk about this with the parents, they deny the facts. They deny the facts. The first challenge what comes. Second thing is, where we are having some special schools and we are having the regular schools. But what I had seen, the people from the regular schools doesn't have that mentality to admit, or they don't have that much patience to, understand this ADHD candidate or student. So that is another problem. They are usually, they are not, for a few months they stay there and they are then thrown out of the school and, they have to go to some special school, or maybe, we are going for some private, consultations and treatment part. So that kind of trauma is also there, in the school. The friends and the rejections and acceptance is a big question. Some teacher accepts, some teacher doesn't accept. So that is a big question, at least, at our place, what I had seen. And then third thing is, you said that one person, means one child out of 20 is ADHD, or one, I think that kind of ratio you had given, and one person, one candidate out of 40, an adult person, that ratio is. Definitely we have to understand what is his condition. And then only we can go with what you said, a small task is the best thing for them. And what I've seen in my practice that, even ADHD, you said that there are different symptoms, a group of symptoms.
Yeah.
But I've seen a different intensity or the severity of the symptoms also.
Yeah.
Some of them, total, we can say 100% ADHD. Some of them, maybe, there is a kind of gradient what I can find out. So that is also there. So, very important thing is, ADHD and autism, all those children, I'm treating them. So it becomes a challenge because they are not coming with their own sign symptoms or something like that. I'm a homeopath, basically. So we all, try to learn about the mind and the physics of the person. And then we have to help of the parents. So very important thing. There are three questions from this discussion.
Yeah.
What kind of school we should go with? Because when we are-
What kind of school? Well, in general, but this also depends on the country and the conditions and the funding that the schools are getting. It has been shown that, so to say, regular schools are better overall for children. And that separate special schools have been proven to perpetuate these issues of segregation, lack of understanding later on in society. Because okay, you're in school, but what happens once you're done with school? So in general, this, and I mean, all countries have had separate schools for children with special needs, and then regular schools, so to say, for normal children. So over time, I do think that it would be more helpful to have what was that?
Thank you, Dr. Sonia.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes,
yeah,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, one more important thing is, what I have learned. If these children, will go to the regular schools, I think that will help them. That will help them
Yeah.
more rather than sending in a special
Yes.
school where all this kind of students are there, special kids are there, and they behave like each other only. So what
Yeah.
I have learned that they should go with a regular school, the routine, they should go with that school only. What do you feel about this?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just that you do have to have the education of educators to be at that level of like, okay, like you understand what
But,
ADHD is like, about, yeah, and the resources as well, you know. Yeah, I do believe that schools for everybody should be, there shouldn't be any special schools, so to say. But I know that it's sometimes challenging to implement.
That is very challenging because the teacher should be educated regarding this aspect. If
Yeah.
the teacher are knowing how to handle these special kids, I think it will become better. And even in our society and community, we have to create awareness. They should not be looked as something very different than other ordinary students. So that attention has to be given. And I think ADHD children I had seen with a homeopathic treatment and counseling and the class various aspects, they improve a lot. I think children started writing their essays, and one child has written his book. So they are intelligent also to some extent. In some particular zone, they are very master. That is what I have learned. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have to search for that, that particular intelligence of that child. And I think he will develop a master, he'll develop into master. So I think
Yeah.
you have given wonderful explanation, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, BETKAR,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swami Shuklaji. Nice discussion. And you are an experienced person in the educational field. So not only the kids, but also with the high quality students. And one side of your is medical field. So it will be helpful to you also as a teacher. Thank you, Dr. Zaklina madam, for your valuable time with us. And great speech on the practical studies for the classrooms and the workplace, useful for teachers and also the organizers also, those who are at the chairperson of that organization. You are working in very practically, and in other countries also your practicals are adopting, and you are getting the best results. Here we also do these things in future. Thank you very much. And in future also you will be welcome here. And very
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your days. Take care.
Thank you. You can leave. We are waiting for the feedback.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.